certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for?
Fellas, I feel this is my lucky day.
Brilliant.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Rankum. We're continuing down our trek down horror movies with 60's. I've got a great bunch of people here. Over to my left, he's a last minute addition. Because I put a call out because we needed people, but we've got Steve. Steve, how's it going?
I mean, the man, the myth, the legend is right here, right in the ranks of 1960s horror movies. I'm down. It was a last-minute invitation, but I managed to scour some unique and interesting picks for tonight.
And also we've got Austin. Austin, how's it going?
Hey, good. I think, Mason and I were talking beforehand. I think there's a couple of really obvious ones that we'll get on the list, and then the other ones we'll see. It might be some personal favorites, a few controversial ones. We'll play around with the list and see what happens.
And as I was saying earlier, for me, unlike last time, I will be participating in this. There will probably become a time we'll go and have to just leave it up to them to do the nominate, because I've only seen 10 60s horror movies, which is a lot more of this decade than last time. But luckily, Amazon Prime came giving for me with 60s, and there was a whole bunch there I hadn't seen before there, so I could actually catch up on a few of them. But with that being said, over here, we're going to go to Steve first. Steve, what is the first movie you're going to bring up?
The first movie I'm going to bring up is Dementia 13. Films directed by Francis Ford Coppola. If you take the American Gothic story and and then there was none, this is what the type of story you get. The black and white came out in the 60s, and it's about this young woman who feigns her husband's letter to invite herself to an Ireland trip for the family reunion, because the husband, spoiler alert, died of a heart attack, and if he died of a heart attack, she was not getting none of the action from the will. So she feigns a letter from the husband to invite herself to Ireland to the family reunion, and then she goes on a plan to make the woman, the matriarch, go crazy. But spoiler alert again, she gets killed, a la a movie we shall talk about later. It rhymes with Ico, or Geico, and it's you take The Haunting, and you take and then there was none, and that's basically what you get. Dementia 13.
Austin, what do you say about Dementia 13?
No. Dementia 13 is okay, but it's like one of Coppola's. I think it was his I don't know if it was his debut, but it was like either number 1 or number 2. I see where he's going. It's still kind of amateurish. Dementia 13 is okay. It's okay. It's like 6 out of 10 for me. But to put it on a top 12, I think I've got much better movies than Dementia 13.
Yeah. But with that, Austin, what is the first movie you're going to bring up?
So I'm debating. Do I get one of the obvious ones out of the way, or do I just go for a sentimental favorite of mine, kind of like Steve did? I'll go for a sentimental favorite of mine. This one is one that Edgar Wright, the director, kind of turned me on to on a podcast he was on. And we got a glut of British horror kind of in the 60s that got ported over. And there's one, I'm a big fan of anthologies. So there's one called Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. It's a lot of fun. Yes, which I'm a big fan of. It's directed by Freddie Francis. It stars a bevy of British character actors. So you've got your usuals, you got your Peter Cushings and your Christopher Lees, but it's also got Donald Sutherland's in there. You got Michael Gough in there. Bernard Lee, who was M in a lot of the Bond movies, is in there. And it's basically Cushing is all these guys are on a train. Cushing's kind of a tarot card, mysterious tarot card reader, sort of a dude. But we get these flashbacks as he's kind of reading everybody's palm. Christopher Lee's kind of the skeptic, that's saying it's all a bunch of nonsense and hokum and silly. But as we get the flashbacks, we get kind of the anthology, and we get all the different short films. It's a lot of fun, but it also has a very kind of disturbing ending for the time for 1965. I don't know if I want to spoil it, but it's basically where they all end up on the train. Is you can kind of see it coming, but it's still very eerie where it ends up. So I'm going to go with Dr. Terror's House of Horrors for British anthology.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I could actually watch on this week.
Yeah,
I'm really bad with remembering what happens, but this is one I did really love. I mean, I'm also a sucker when it comes to anthology horror movies or
I love
anthology
anthologies
movies in general. I mean, most people that know me know I've got a really hot take of a movie that I really enjoy that a lot of people don't like.
Tales from the Hood? Please say Tales from the Hood. I love Tales from the Hood.
There's 43 other movies I could like, but
sure.
movie 40. But anyway, but movie 43 was not a 60s horror movie. It's not even a 60s movie, so I'm not going to bother talking about that. Anyway, Dr. Terror's House of Horror is a fun movie. This is it's going to be years for me. Steve, what would you have said about Dr. Terror's House of Horrors?
Never heard of it. Never heard of it. I admired it. I could say that I admire Edgar Wright's taste, and he has a very unique and great taste. So, but you describing it sight unseen, I'm probably going to watch it later on. And maybe, I don't know, probably get ready for Halloween and probably watch it on Halloween. You never know.
It's a lot of fun.
So I'll give it a thumbs up there.
Yeah.
It's not going to be at the top. Like for me, it's like 11 or 12. You know what I mean? It's like right skirting in there, but it's just kind of a personal favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one that, like, when you do watch it, you can sort of see where some Edgar Wright has gotten some of his inspirations from well. But with that, it's going to move on to me. I'm going to get an obvious one out the way, just because it was already hinted at. Everyone knows what it was going to be anyway. It's Psycho. Honestly, there's probably not a lot I can need to say about this, but this is just a really good movie. This is the one most people sort of think of when they think of 60s horror movies. Like this and one other from this director, which could come up later. But yeah, Psycho's a good movie. Janet Leigh's, I think it's Janet Leigh. It's either that or Vivian Leigh, but one of the Leighs. Yeah, Anthony Perkins is great. And there was no remake of this that came out in '98 with Vince Vaughn. Not at all.
We'll talk about that movie.
Steve, what do you say about Psycho?
Excuse me. Psycho's my number one. I mean, that's my number one. I have a list. Psycho was the top one, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, the granddaddy of all slasher films. Anthony Perkins delivers a tremendous performance that I say he carries that performance time and time again in Psycho 2, 3, and 4. Those are really great. I think those are one of the less known horror franchise that is actually great. 3, on the other hand, gets really bizarre, but like 2 and 4 is really top tier in my opinion. Especially the last one being directed by Mick Garris and it being a Showtime television movie exploring back to history before Bates Motel did that, and freaking starring the kid from E.T. and Olivia the woman from the Romeo and Juliet in the 60s. Olivia, I'm forgetting.
Olivia Dukakis?
No, that.
Olivia. The one who pulled her boobs out in the '60s one. Yeah.
That one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one. Psycho's number one for me. I thumbs up approval there. Come on.
But if that it does make the list, Austin, what would you say about Psycho?
Yeah, Psycho's my number one as well. It's a no-brainer. It plays around with so many. I mean, really, it took the horror movie and even turned it upside down for 1960 that it's even shocking 60 years later where the story starts, where it goes halfway through, and where it even ends, and the things that it was dealing with schizophrenia and mental illness and multiple personality disorder, and the fact that, you know, the heroine who you think is the heroine is not. I mean, kind of a spoiler alert, but it's a 60-year-old movie that I think everybody's seen right now. But yeah, Psycho's an easy number one. Yeah, number one with a bullet for Psycho.
But with that, we move over to Steve for his next nomination.
Mm-hmm.
You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. You know, the last thing I wanted to do was start munching on some dessert there while you guys were waxing poetic about Psycho. You know. So the nomination I like to put in, people consider it a sci-fi movie. I consider it a horror movie as well. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Directed by Don Siegel, the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I thought that was 50s.
Was it? Did I get 50?
Yeah, 56, I believe, and the remake was in 78.
All right, scratch that. Take that off the list. All right, let's go.
I do like that movie, but it would be in my 50s list. But yes, I'm a big Body Snatchers fan, so yeah, I'm all about Body Snatchers. But if it was in 60s, I'd vote for it. But yes.
All right, my bad. So let me nominate another original movie that was remade later in the 80s, The Little Shop of Horrors. Roger Corman directed black and white movie. I actually first caught this up a few months ago on The Last Drive-In. They were doing a pairing with The Little Shops of Horror and some other film. I've never seen it in its entirety, and it's being what it was, being what the premise is, and based on the amount of the budget they did, I thought they did a pretty good job. You know, it's a little the effects are shoddy for its time, but for what they're trying to go for, I thought they did a very well job. It's very different. It's non-musical. It's and it has a little bit of a higher body count than the remake did. And there's it's directed by Roger Corman, featuring Dick Miller. Of course, you're going to have Dick Miller, Roger Corman's buddy, being in that film, and Dick Miller being the character actor of the 80s to be featured in such classics as Chopping Mall and Gremlins The New Batch. So, Terminator, exactly. So with that being said, I nominate the original Little Shop of Horrors.
Austin, what do you say about Little Shop of Horrors?
You know what? I was on the fence about the Little Shop of Horrors before the show started, but yeah, I'm going to say yes. I think it's just, if we're going to have one Roger Corman movie in here, I think this is probably the one to do, because it's better than stuff like The Terror, some of the other, Attack of the Crab Monsters, all those goofy movies, things like that. If you're gonna have something, let's have something a little more on the serious side, even though it is Roger Corman. And yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's about on par with the remake, in my opinion, because I'm not really high on the remake. I'm just not big on musicals, but yeah, I'll go with yes. Again, it'll be probably towards the bottom of the list for me, but I'll say yes to Little Shop. Absolutely.
Yeah, like I until this week I'd only ever seen the musical, but I just recently watched the remake, and yeah, it's really good. I mean, you've got a young Jack Nicholson in this movie, like one of his 3 collaborations with Corman in the 60s, and yeah, it would have been an absolute yes for me too. Like, this is one that I didn't know how I would react to this, just because I knew it wasn't a musical per se, but this was a lot of fun, and to sort of see the bare bones of what the musical was before they decided to add the music and changing the tone of the movie a little bit. It was just really interesting to sort of see that progression finally. But Austin, what is the next movie you're going to bring up?
I'm going to go with another personal favorite before we kind of get back into the essentials. I'm going to go with the sequel to Horror of Dracula, starring Christopher Lee. I'm going to go with Dracula, Prince of Darkness, from, I believe, 1963, but I could have that wrong. But anyways, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, the sequel, directed by Terrence Fisher. I just think Christopher Lee had kind of Horror Dracula might be the better movie overall, but I think he settles more into the role of Dracula in the sequel. I think it has a better gothic feel than the original one did. It's got that Hammer horror vibe, and you know, Hammer horror was big in the '60s, and I think it really settles into like the creepy castle stuff. You got a basic premise of four weary travelers on a road, and they get lost and they get stranded, and a driverless carriage comes up and picks them up and takes them right to the castle, and of course hijinks ensue, basically, and they meet up with Dracula. But his presence in the film is, I think, even stronger in this one. He keeps it mostly silent. He doesn't have too many lines. He's just a presence throughout the movie, and I think the movie looks amazing. It just has a great atmosphere. So I'm going to go Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
And yeah, I mean, if you hadn't mentioned the title of the movie and you just talked about what the movie was about, people just assumed it was a Kabuki Picture Show because it essentially is.
Right. No, it's a very tropey thing. Yeah. 1966, by the way. I'm sorry, I had the year off, but 1966. Yeah.
Yeah. But with that being said, I haven't seen this. The way Austin described it, I want to see this.
Oh yeah.
This sounds fun. Steve, have you seen Dracula, Prince of Darkness?
I have not, but the fact that you have a Christopher Lee as Dracula movie on your list gets a thumbs up for me and make me want to watch it and seek out any copies because I know there's none. It's not streaming anywhere. It's only available on Amazon physically, so I'm going to go over there.
I have a 4-pack, like I bought a long time ago. It's like a 4-pack Dracula thing, and it's 4 of Christopher Lee's Dracula movies, like Horror of Dracula, Dracula Prince of Darkness, Dracula AD 1972, and then the Dracula or Taste the Fear of Dracula, whatever that one is called. But it's got 4 of them on there. It's great. It's a good set.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to add. Let's add it. Let's add it to the list.
Cool.
But it does make this list. And with that, it is on me. So I'm going to go for another essential. Like this is another one that, for the longest time, I hadn't seen any of the original George A. Romero Living Dead movies.
Damn it! Damn you!
But I did watch Night of the Living Dead for the first time this week, and this is one that. I mean, look, honestly, I thought it was a fine movie, and it's one of those ones, especially when it comes to watching some of these classic 60s horror movies that I've never seen before. Like, a lot of the scary stuff it's not so much jump scares, like what you would normally see in stuff like now that like Malignant or other things that have just recently come out that rely on jump scares. A lot of the terror just comes from sort of just the creepy undertones. And honestly, I thought it was fine. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and to me, I think this was a case of it did get a little bit overhyped for me a little bit. I still like it enough to nominate it. But Steve, what do you say about Night of the Living Dead?
They're coming to get you, brah. I mean, come on. This is a seminal zombie movie before zombies was even a thing. This established the rules. Just let them know that you have to bash people in the head so in order for these suckers to even go down. Even fire would put these mother suckers out. This is also complete with ended with a completely bleak ending that reflected on what was going on at the times of civil rights and everything. It's a seminal horror movie. It's a classic in itself. It's not your scary movie. Like it's not like you said. It's not like I'm gonna jump you out of it or whatever. Or it's more about. This was basically Walking Dead before Walking Dead. This was the humans against humans before even the zombies came. You didn't even see the zombies attack the people until obviously a little bit in the beginning, but the middle, man, that middle part, it's all about humans versus humans, psychology going on in there. It's about bigoted people against people who are of a different color or different race going at each other, literally, and eventually. Dwayne kills the bigot before the zombies got to him because he was going on a rant there. So that's for sure. I'm gonna have to go with Night of the Living Dead. That's my number 2.
Yeah, And I mean, that's what threw me a lot when watching this, because like when you see zombie movies now, it's like it's all about the zombies, just that. So to see this, that it wasn't so much about the zombies, threw me a little bit for a loop, just because I was a little bit confused. Like, where are the zombies? We don't see them. But Austin,
Yeah.
what would you have said about Night of the
Well,
Living
no,
Dead?
yeah, Night of the Living Dead is 100% essential for this list. It has to be on there. I mean, it is George A. Romero basically inventing the modern day zombie movie that everyone has looked to imitate and duplicate. Then he did it again and reinvented the wheel again with Dawn of the Dead, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to the 70s movie or our 70s show. But, you know, the fact that he basically came up with almost every trope or cliche that we knew before they were tropes and cliches about zombies, he did it here first. And his casting of Dwayne Jones as Ben, the protagonist of the film, kind of coincided with Sidney Poitier's rise in cinema around this time, and you know, black leading men. It was really revolutionary, especially for a horror movie. Night of the Living Dead is 100% essential. It's my number 2 as well, Steve. Yeah, it has to be on the list.
Absolutely.
And actually, like as I said when I set up this whole series, 70s is one that we've already done, so we're not redoing it again.
Oh, okay.
But
Gotcha.
Dawn of the Dead did make the list. I just had to double check.
Excellent. It better have made the list. I'm going to protest. Yeah.
But once I actually find what I've. Anyway, Austin, Steve,
Yes.
we're back to you. Steve, we're back to you for your next nomination.
All right, before Malcolm takes another essential out of my list here, this guy over here,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm gonna take a pick out of my essential. I'm going Rosemary's Baby. Come on, Rosemary's Baby, Roman Polanski's masterpiece. This was the time where, unfortunately, Roman Polanski was coming off a real tragedy, the killing of Sharon Tate, and in the wake of the killing of his wife, he made and helped crafted Rosemary's Baby, and the before we even had any sense of possessions or devil worshipping, we had this took devil worshipping up to a whole new level. The devil worshipping wasn't a thing until, well, it was a thing in like little cult movies in the late 50s, late 40s, but this really took devil worshipping to where Hollywood is. So I mean, hell, you can even say that that Hollywood elite was part of the devil worship. You know what I'm saying? No, all jokes aside, featured a great performance from Mia Farrow. I mean, she just kills it here. You have John Cassavetes, you have Ruth Gordon, who I believe was the second actor to be nominated for a horror movie. For an actor, I believe she won. Second actress to win, or first actress to win a Oscar for a horror film. You also have Maurice Evans, Ralph Bellamy, and the feature film debut of Charles Grodin, rest in peace, who passed away earlier this week. It's basically a woman. She goes with her husband, moves up to a very fancy apartment in New York. They meet these two neighbors. Turns out they're devil worshippers. Who would have figured? And they end up, possessing the seed of the woman in order to grow the son of the devil. And it's basically Rosemary's Baby in a bunch. There you go.
Austin, what do you say about Rosemary's Baby?
Oh, 100%. Rosemary's Baby is another essential one. I will say this. I rewatched it not too long ago, probably like 6 months ago. The actual sequence where she is, I don't want to say like impregnated, but basically, impregnated. And like some of the imagery in that whole sequence and montage is still disturbing to this day. It's still freaky. It's still weird. It still gets under your skin. It also plays into a subgenre of horror that I'm a big fan of, which is paranoia horror, not being able to trust the person next to you. And the fact that Mia Farrow gets this sense of paranoia and the fact that she can't trust the people around her. She doesn't know who she can trust, not even her husband in this movie. It plays into this whole her psychological breakdown. So yeah, that aspect of it alone is creepy, and then you just add the fact that she's carrying the Antichrist or the spawn of Satan, whatever you want to call it, is just even creepier. So yeah, Rosemary's Baby is definitely high up on the list.
Yeah, this is one. This is one I was hoping to try and find, but I just didn't get down to it. It sounds interesting. Say what you want about Roman Polanski, like separate the art from the artist. It's like I've seen clips of this movie on various Watch Mojo lists. This looks good. And yeah, Austin, what is the next movie going to bring up?
I'm going to go with a French New Wave film called Eyes Without a Face. It is a prototype for movies that we see nowadays, sort of like The Skin I Live In, things like that, where the setup is essentially, it's from 1960. There's a surgeon dad who accidentally causes a car accident involving his daughter. She is horribly disfigured, and he is going to do everything he can to reconfigure her face to give her a brand new lease on life. Unfortunately, that means kidnapping other women and basically taking the faces off of them and trying to surgically transplant them onto his own daughter. But the creepiest thing about this movie, in addition to being shot beautifully in this in the black and white, is that the mask that the daughter wears is it's like a porcelain doll. It's one of the creepiest things that will get under your skin. It's another one of these proto movies we would see for stuff like Maniac, or where there are these stalkers, stalking people, and then he just takes it a step further. The fact that he's an actual surgeon. There's some horrific surgery scenes in this thing where people are basically being tortured, under the lights, of surgery. It's a movie that's well ahead of its time, and I think it needs more faces, eyes and faces to see it. So Eyes Without a Face from 1960.
But yeah, I haven't seen this movie. But but Steve, have you seen this movie? What are you going to say about it?
I have seen clips of this movie. I don't know if that counts. I have not seen the movie. I am familiar with The Skin I Live In, and if it's anything akin to The Eyes Without a Face, then count me 100% and very interested. Even by the clips that I saw on a long Watch Mojo list a long time ago, I just caught up with it recently. They listed as their top 10. I would probably list it on my top 10 if I saw it. And it's time to put put some French language on this. So let's make this an eclectic taste of films for us to rank.
Well, we've got a little British horror on there with Dr. Terror. A little French New Wave never hurt anybody, right? Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
I might have a little Italian come up pretty soon, just to mix it up even more. We'll see.
And I think I know what you're speaking of, so I will leave you to that.
Okay.
But for that, Eyes Without a Face does make it onto this list. I know this is going to be an interesting way of doing it, but Steve was last minute. I haven't seen a lot of them, and there's probably about half of my list I actually really do like. The other one I really don't want to make this list anyway.
Sure.
So if someone sells me on a movie, I'm going to say yes, because why not? But anyway, the next one I'm going to bring up is another British horror movie. I'm bringing up the Telltale Heart, based on the classic Edgar Allan Poe book, directed by Ernest Morris. But this is just one of those ones that I've never actually read an Edgar Allan Poe book before. I'm more familiar with The Raven just because of The Simpsons. But The Telltale Heart is one that has been referenced a lot, but I've not seen it. But just watching it, the first lines it says says something along the lines of, "If you're scared of horror movies, just close your eyes and just listen to." And they just play the beating heart for the tense moments. Whenever you hear the sound, if you're scared, just close your eyes. And that to me makes it seem more creepier as well. Just not even paying attention to this movie, just listen to the beating heart in the background. Just you just know something really bad's happening. But look, this is an interesting movie. Like, there's got noticeable people in there, like Lawrence Payne, Adrian Coy, and Dermot Walsh are the three sort of big lit names in this. But this is a fine movie. I don't know where this is going to go, if it's going to make the list or not. But Steve, what do you say about the Telltale Heart?
Funny you should mention it. When I was in middle school, we were on an Edgar Allan Poe kick. So what our teacher did, and this was summer school. So what our teacher did was basically put on Edgar Allan Poe movies for a whole week, and we watched almost half of the Edgar Allan Poe and or Poe Corman films. And guess what? One of those movies were. That's right. It's a Telltale Heart. So with nostalgic hitting me real hard, and you bringing up Telltale Heart, I'm going to have to also agree that Telltale Heart should be on the list. With another movie that I also saw when I was a child that I shall mention next.
Austin, what would you have said about the Telltale Heart?
I probably would have said no, only because I think the Vincent Price, Peter Lorre Raven from '66 is kind of a better Edgar Allan Poe adaptation from the '60s. That if we were going to have something from Edgar Allan Poe on the list, I would have put the Raven on there, even though it just kind of skirts off my top 12 just slightly. The one you're talking about, I think I saw it in school also, Steve. Like, that was one that they just, like, it must have been a copy of something they just had floating around. Those safer school movies. It's okay. It's all right. I just don't think it's the most dynamic Poe adaptation of the '60s. I think there's better ones, just for me personally.
But Steve, what is the one you're going to bring up?
The one I'm going to bring up, it's another Poe film, and it's starring the one and only Vincent Price. I'm picking The Pit and the Pendulum. The Pit and the Pendulum. Okay. One of the movies that it was also directed by Corman, so we might have two Cormans on this list here. So set in 16th century, the story's about a young Englishman who visits a forbidden castle to investigate his sister's mysterious death. After a series of horrific revelations, apparently ghostly appearances, and violent deaths, the young man becomes strapped to the titular torture device by his lunatic brother-in-law, played by Vincent Price. Yes, sir. Okay, so yes, I did read the synopsis from my phone. So before anybody asks, this literally the last time I saw this movie was that same week that they put on that Edgar Allan Poe kick. But I just remember just being that scene. Look, because that's the first time I've ever seen that type of torture device before. The actual pendulum before Saw 5 made it more terrific, not terrific, or horrific, excuse me, with its end results. But Vincent Price, I think if I'm going with, I think if Pez is thinking of a movie that I'm thinking about, maybe he'll go with another Vincent Price movie that came out of the '60s. But this is the '60s. This is the one that I've seen. The only one I've seen in the '60s, and it has Corman on it, and it has Edgar Allan Poe, and I found it a really cool segue after Malcolm talked about Telltale Heart. So I'm gonna nominate the Pit and the Pendulum.
Austin, what do you say about the Pit and the Pendulum?
I definitely agree. We need a Vincent Price movie on here. I think it's pretty essential for the '60s. So if we're gonna have one between this or House of Usher, I think, or even the Mask of the Red Death. You know what? Let's go with Pit and the Pendulum. I'll agree with Steve. If we're gonna put a little price on there, let's put some price where he's clearly having a lot of fun. It's one he's into. He's not just kind of sleepwalking through it like a couple of those later '70s movies. You know what? I'll go for Pit and the Pendulum. Let's get some Vincent Price on this list. I'm down.
And with that, it does make the list. I just haven't seen this one, but after seeing Telltale Heart, I'm definitely going to want to search out some more this Edgar Allan Poe adaptations. Austin, what is the next movie you're going to bring up?
All right, so we got 3 spots left, don't we? Okay, so let's see. We got to be a little pickier here now. All right. I guess I'll shoot my shot for the one Italian horror, which I'm not super huge on, but I do like some of them. I'm gonna go with, it was either Black Sunday or Black Sabbath. I'm gonna go Black Sabbath because again I'm a fan. I'm an anthology guy. So anthology is up my alley. The fact that it's a Italian horror anthology. This is Mario Bava. Mario Bava was really on quite a kick in the 60s. I mean, he really kicked it up a notch with this and Black Sunday. You got Boris Karloff basically as like the host, sort of your crypt keeper, so to speak, introducing 3 different stories. They're called The Telephone, The Wardelag, and The Drop of Water, and they progressively get better. It actually starts out a little slow, but it's still creepy, and it builds to a really nice finale. I think the art direction, what Bava did back in the 60s is incredible. What he did with colors, what he did with set design, costume design, everything. Just the way Bava and Italian horror in general kind of uses music to their advantage, and really weird music cues and dancing around the different vibes that they use for Italian horror. Let's go Black Sabbath. It's another fun anthology, but I'm a sucker for anthologies. So yeah.
My favorite Black Sabbath song is Iron Man. Ozzy Osbourne was a great singer. I haven't seen the movie Black Sabbath. As soon as Austin said it, I knew I was going to make that joke regardless.
Yeah, sure.
But Steve, what do you say about Black Sabbath?
I have not seen Black Sabbath, but I have seen clips of Black Sabbath, and I too am a big sucker for anthology movies. Black Sabbath. We also have to have a Mario Bava movie on this. We have to.
Yeah,
let alone a Bela Lugosi as the fucking, pardon my language, the fucking crypt keeper of this movie. Let's go,
Boris
bro.
Karloff, not Bela Lugosi. Boris Karloff.
Sorry, Jesus Christ. Wrong monster. My bad.
No, but he's great. He's having, you can tell he's having a blast in the movie. When you watch it, he's just having so much fun as kind of the host, so to speak, of this anthology, being the crypt keeper. He's really great. And it's one of those things where he's not like part of a wraparound story, like some anthologies have. He's just like literally the host. Like he's just introducing, these different things. So it's a lot of fun.
So yeah, it's on me. And there's 2 spots left. I'm going to try for one that I'm surprised hasn't come up yet. It's another obvious pick, and it's another one by Alfred Hitchcock. I'm going for The Birds. And look, this is one I haven't seen it in a while. But the first, I remember watching it when I did watch it. I really enjoyed the hell out of this. Like, just one thing Howard does like good is making just anything seem more scary than they need to be. Just having birds just chase you. Oh yeah, just having birds just attack everyone. Like it's just freaky enough because quite often, like especially over here, like when you go like eating in the park and get attacked by seagulls, in general, it's like it just brings back memories of that movie, whether it's good or bad. But I think the birds belong on this list. Steve, what do you say about the birds?
Birds belong on the list. This is one of probably top 10 Hitchcock. I don't know if I would put it in my top 5. Because I really like a lot more. I think there's a lot more stronger horror movies. Obviously, this one being the second best one of the decade, in my opinion. God, just the fact that you take something so like before this, nobody think birds would attack you. I'm pretty sure people would think, oh, birds are just little friendly little squawking creatures. But this took this up to a whole brand new nightmare. I mean, without this, we wouldn't have Birdemic. I mean, and who could forget that, man? Birdemic.
Yeah, who could forget Birdemic?
Birdemic is such a classic, such a classic feature. And without birds, you wouldn't have Birdemic. But no, in all seriousness, just even that scene where the car explodes and the way that it's cut, it's just that's just a masterclass of editing, in my opinion. And I think birds definitely belong there. If Malcolm was not going to mention the birds, I was going to mention it, so it was going to be mentioned regardless. So birds gets a thumbs up on my thing there.
And Austin, what would you have said about the birds?
Yeah, it's number 5 on mine. So yeah, we definitely need an animals attack movie, on this thing as well, because sort of a creature feature kind of a thing. And yeah, it's got to be the birds. And who could ever forget Birds 2: Land's End from 1994 that nobody ever talks about? There's a sequel.
Apparently me.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That nobody talks about. But anyways, but the birds, yeah, I mean, has one of my favorite kind of tension-laden scenes when they're just simply trying to sneak by all these birds sitting on this, like in this playground, just like sitting there, and they're just trying not to stir up trouble, sneak by and not try to disturb any of these birds. I mean, it's like such a simple setup and yet so brilliantly executed. Hitchcock knows exactly what he's doing. He's the master of suspense. And yeah, the birds is it's probably not in my top 3 or 4 Hitchcock movies in general, but I think for this list, it does exactly what it needs to do. And yeah, we have to have some kind of animal attack movie on here. It's got to be the birds.
Yeah, and just on a side note, I remember seeing someone making a short parody movie of a short clip for the birds, but dubbed all the bird sounds with the seagulls from Finding Nemo. Mine.
Mine. I think I've seen that.
But Steve, we've only got one spot left. Do you have the movie that's going to take
boy.
it?
Ooh, I'm between 2 films. But this one, I think, this one that I've seen more recently. I'm gonna go with Repulsion. Repulsion, starring it's another Polanski movie. Hey, I'm sorry, just Polanski was something that I was into, with despite all the stuff going on with him, and Catherine Deneuve. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. I'm not French, so I'm not really good at it. She plays a young woman who's basically having a very, very bad day. And she has mental illness, and she ends up spoiler alert, killing two people inadvertently. And I didn't find it funny, but just the fact that one of the victims declared his love to her, and then she responds back by just whacking him in the head with a candlestick. That's my dating life. So without death, of course. But but there's this really, really stark nightmare. It's a nightmarish movie that's just basically about mental illness, and there's this one particular scene where it's basically hands coming out of a wall just reaching out for Catherine Deneuve, and just not going to town on her, but just trying to reach for her, just because she's having a very bad day. I've only seen this once, and it was a long time ago. Not as long a time ago as it was with my middle school Edgar Allan Poe kick, but it's recent, so I'm going to go with Repulsion.
Austin, what do you say about Repulsion?
I'm really debating on this because we've got Polanski's better film on the list, and Repulsion is number 10 on my list. So I'm debating. There's like 2 other movies I would fight for to be on the list, and I would
fair.
This one. But I think we've already got Polanski's better movie. But I do appreciate us mentioning Repulsion because it's great, and again it's another one that a lot of the theme of these 60s movies, a lot of these are way ahead of their time. Like they're addressing certain things that people weren't addressing back then, like mental illness, like sexual repression, like rape culture. I mean that movie's all about that, and the fact, and not her going into the psychosis of not knowing what's real and what's not, and these hallucinations, and like you said, the stuff where she's walking through the hallway and there's these arms coming out of the walls. It's one of the creepiest scenes, like just the idea of you having to walk through something like that. So as much as I like Repulsion, I think we already have Polanski's better movie, so I'm going to say no, but it pains me to say no, because I actually would want to put it on there, but it pains me to say it. But I think there's 1 or 2 other movies I want to fight for on this list, just to keep it spread out a little bit. That's all.
Fair enough. I just had to mention it because it was.
No, it's good. It's good, and people should see it. Like, it's really good.
I just simply haven't seen it. Like, the premise sounds interesting that I do want to see it, but I'm not going to put this on just because I haven't, not so much because I haven't seen it, but I want to see what Austin has for the next pick
Okay.
because it's coming up now.
All right, so we need a haunted house movie on here too. You need a 60s haunted house movie. And it's got to be The Haunting from 1963 with Robert Wise, the original Haunting. It's got to be not the remake with Liam Neeson. Forget that movie. Let's go back to the original. Let's go back to a movie that literally, The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix right now, takes directly from this. The house in the movie is called Hill House. It's a direct basically adaptation. It has a phenomenal paranormal atmosphere. It does a lot of little tricks to kind of set up the things without having people in white sheets, without having skeletons popping out and going boo. Like there's stuff like there's a scene where one of the couples is holding hands while they're hearing noises on the other side of this door, and then all of a sudden after a few editing tricks, she's by herself holding nothing by herself, and I realized her husband's in another room. Like, what was she holding? There's weird stuff where the ghosts are playing tricks on them, but it's really, again, ahead of its time for what it was, and setting up a lot of these tropes and cliches that we see now that weren't tropes and cliches back in 1963. They had a lesbian couple in this movie that could not touch because it was against censor codes in this movie. They couldn't even do it, but it's right there. I mean, there's the two lady women are madly in love. It plays like a play, like theater, just the way that the atmosphere is set up, the sound design, the music. I just think we need a haunted house movie on this list, and it's got to be 1963's The Haunting.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who actually I actually do like the 90s remake of The Haunting, but this is not the 90s, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. I've always wanted to see the original just to for comparative reasons, and I just haven't got around to seeing it. But so Steve, what do you say about 1963's The Haunting?
This is another seminal 60s horror classic that has to be on this list, and I'm going to give this the big old thumbs up. Robert Wise, who went from doing West Side Story to having his co-star Russ Tamblyn being featured in this movie as the cousin of the Inheritance, and just the ending is bleak as fuck, dude. I mean, for what it was.
Dude, a lot of these 60s movies have like bleak endings, and and they were, again, we talked about the movies being ahead of their time and not being appreciated at the time for what they were, and you have to put yourself in that mindset and the time frame. But like, these movies did stuff that people didn't think was possible, and a lot of them got panned at the time for it. Critics, they wanted a happy ending. People in the 60s, they wanted to see those happy endings. They didn't want to see these bleak endings where people die or your heroine gets killed off halfway through the movie. They didn't want to see that.
Here's the tagline for the 60s. Fuck the happy endings.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's basically what it was. I mean, you have most of our lists are not happy endings, man. I mean, if anything, all of our lists doesn't have happy endings, pretty much. I mean, literally, where's their happy ending in our list? Nothing. We got it. Like I said, the 60s. Fuck happy ending. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, in horror movies in general, happy endings is very rare. But that Haunting does make this list. But before we go into actually ranking this, Steve, do you have any honorable mentions?
I have a few. I've got a lot of people won't consider it a horror movie, but I consider it a horror movie. Even people will consider it a thriller. The original Cape Fear with Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum. I know it's like the Silence of the Lambs treatment, a horror thriller. I mean, there's horrific things that are happening in the movie. It's not. It's not like slasher type of deal, but it's horrific enough. Carnival of Souls. Carnival of Souls would have been a really good addition. I also would have put Peeping Tom, Michael Powell's. That was coming off of the Psycho craze too. I believe the same year as Psycho as well, 1960.
Same year.
Yeah, same year. Village of the Damned. I mean, not a great. It's not. It wasn't a great movie, nor was the remake was, but it put up. It continued the trek of creepy child that the bad seed established in the 50s. Whatever happened to Baby Jane? I don't want to take any more, so I'm sorry if I took any of Pez's honorable mention.
No,
But
no. I had one or two of those. I had similar ones. Peeping Tom was one I debated on between that and The Haunting, only because it's kind of like the British Psycho. It's very similar, but again, it was a prototype of slashers and especially stuff like I was talking about, like Maniac, where it's like these stalkers who trap these women in situations. I mean, it's got a great premise. If you, please go seek it out. There's a movie called The Sadist, which is really good. It's basically kind of a setup for stuff like Natural Born Killers or The Devil's Rejects, where it's this crazy couple holding this family hostage and psychologically torturing them. It's very simple, but it's very, very effective and ahead of its time. We mentioned Repulsion, Black Sunday, again, another Mario Bava is really strong. And The Gorgon. The Gorgon's another Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee kind of a fun British horror movie that I'm a big fan of.
But yeah, I mean, not so much honorable mentions for me, just because I wasn't a too big a fan of these ones. But
the stuff you've seen.
Yeah, the other ones that I've seen, like Vincent, talking about Vincent Price, The Last Man on Earth. I'd watched for the first time this week.
I considered that.
I mean, it's for me, it's fine. Like, it's but you've seen a lot of those Last Men on Earth.
It's I Am Legend. It's another adaptation of I Am
much,
Legend. Yeah.
I also watched It's Alive, which I found really boring at times. Monstrosity is one I watched for the first time, about someone putting their brain to a cat or something like that. And then Creature from the Haunted Sea, which must have watched a long time ago, but didn't like. But with that being said, just to recap the what we've got on this list, we've got Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Try saying that 10 times fast. We've got Psycho, Little Shop of Horrors, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Night of the Living Dead, Rosemary Baby, Hours Without a Face, A Telltale Heart, Put in the Pendulum, Black Sabbath, The Birds, and The Haunting. But how we get to vote is we're going to write on our on a whiteboard or bit of paper, whatever's handy, what we want at 12.
Okay.
All right, give me a second.
Right. Oh, hang on. Yeah, let me fix this real quick. Hold on. All right, I'm all set.
All right.
But
it's not trivia, Steve. Don't worry. I'm not about to reveal our trivia answers.
I can't help it.
Hands up.
It's reflex.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But Steve, what do you have for 12?
12, I have the Telltale Heart.
Austin.
Funny you should say that. I also had the Telltale Heart at number 12.
Yeah, but just because I haven't seen it, and it's out of the ones that I haven't seen, that it's the line I'm probably least interested in is Black Sabbath, but Telltale Heart is going to be at 12. Austin, what do you have for 11?
I'm going to go Little Shop of Horrors for number 11.
I've still got Black Sabbath. Steve?
I've got The Pit and the Pendulum.
Oh, okay. We're all over the place on that one.
So
how does that work again, Malcolm? Refresh me.
Well, yeah.
We're all different.
Normally, if there's a tie, if there's someone in the chat, I know it says there's two people watching, but no one's actually said anything in the chat, then I'd go to the chat for a tie break. But otherwise, I'm going to put up a wheel because I like wheels.
I like wheels too. Wheels are good. It's a good invention.
I mean, they're good for breaking up ties when no one's talking in the chat. So we got
sure.
We got Pit, Sabbath, and Horrors.
Shop or Horrors.
I mean, I probably would have gone shop had another movie been picked, but
Mhm.
but with that, spinning the wheel and spinning the wheel.
Spinning the wheel, round and around it goes. Where it will stop, it stops at the pit of the pendulum. Kind of appropriate for a wheel, it's kind of rocking back
Yeah.
and forth, spinning around a little bit for a pit of the pendulum. It's a good spot for it.
But for me, I've still got Black Sabbath. Steve.
Give me a second because I was distracted, and I'm gonna go with Pez's pick. Why don't we make it back-to-back Corman films and put Little Shop of Horrors?
Oh, I was gonna go. Just my number 10 was Dr. Terrors because it's just
there
kind of at the bottom of my
Can I
list.
change? Yeah, let's try to.
You can do that. You want to do Dr. Terror at number 10? I'm down
Yeah,
with
let's
that.
go Dr. Terror. Dr. Terror.
Dr. Terror's at 10. We'll agree on that.
Yeah, agree.
I'm cool with
That's
that.
gonna be
It's
my
number
next-
10 on my list. It's number 10.
That's gonna be my next pick on mine after this.
Yeah.
Just for future, you don't have to. You can just stick on the same one if you want. Because you don't have to go for what your personal 10 is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just found it's a good spot for it because I don't think it's as good as some of the other ones.
It's all
Like,
good.
it's,
That's all good. I just thought I'd mention that because we've had other people who'd like, oh yeah, we'll change it because it's clearly no one's going to vote for it. But anyway,
it's all good.
Yeah,
Well, maybe me and Steve will be on the same page for the obvious next one.
And Dr. 10. Alright. But for number 9, I've got Black Sabbath still. Steve.
So I got Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop. Let's go Little Shop of Horrors for number 9. Sounds
House
good.
of Horrors and Little Shop of Horrors. How about that?
Yeah. Works for me. Mm-hmm.
Little Shop of Horrors was my number 2. I'm not salty at all. But then again, I've only seen 10 60s horror movies, so but Austin, what do you have?
All right, I'm coming. Now I will agree with you on Black Sabbath. We'll go Black Sabbath for number 8.
Yeah, Black Sabbath. Steve, what did you have?
Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Don't erase it, Steve.
I'm not.
So I figure out where I've put my pen. Alright, Steve, what do you have for 7?
Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Austin?
Dracula.
Yeah, Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Ooh, clean
Looks like
sweep.
a good spot for it. All right. I gotta look at the chat again. Let me see for the next one. Hang on. Let's see. Oh, okay. I think I know where I'm going. Yeah. All right. All right.
Alright, Steve, what do you have for 6?
Ojos sin un cara. Eyes without face.
Eyes without a face. Perfect spot right outside the top 5.
And I went for The Haunting. Eyes Without a Face is going to be our number 6. And just to recap what we've got left, we've got Psycho, Night of the Living Dead, Rosemary's Baby, The Birds, and The Haunting left.
Sorry, my internet got a little sketchy for a second. My apologies.
Still good. My
All right,
internet tends to do that from time to time as well. But
all right, number 5, right? Okay.
Yep.
What
do you have?
The haunting, and number 5.
Yeah, The Haunting. Steve.
Haunting, clean sweep.
Yep. I think me and Steve will be on the same page for pretty much this top 4 or top 3.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Steve, what do you have for
The pájaros, the birds.
Austin?
Those pesky boys.
I actually put Rosemary's Baby, but the birds will be for.
There you.
Yeah.
Only because it's the last one left I haven't seen. So.
Okay, fair.
Fair enough. I think it's on. Prime. I think that's where I watched it.
Not Prime for me, but otherwise I
yeah.
would.
You got international. I think it's on HBO Max. Do you have HBO Max? Maybe.
Not in New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Really lucking out in all those streaming services there.
Yeah, so we don't have HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Peacock yet. I know Paramount Plus has just recently been launched in Australia, but for some reason they launched it here at the same time. But anyway,
yeah, you're in the wrong country.
Yeah.
But anyway, for number 3, I've got Rosemary's Baby.
Number 3, Rosemary's Baby.
You betcha, Rosemary Baby.
All right.
And this time, instead of writing down your number 2, we're going straight to number 1.
Straight to number 1. Excuse me.
And judging from what people said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty obvious what's going to be.
Very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm that confident. Let's all show the board at the same time. Psycho.
The boy's best friend is his mother.
Psycho. Nice. You're right. As you predicted it. We both had same rankings.
Well, I mean, you two both said it's at your number 1.
But we had the same. We had the same 4 or 5, top ones. I mean, again, we talked about that at the beginning. I think there's a pretty obvious, top 5 or so, and then you could play around after that. There's a lot of wild cards, but I had a lot of the same honorable mentions that Steve had. There's a lot of really good stuff that's pretty obvious, and then there's a lot of decent, fun movies too thrown in there. But 70s, 80s, 90s, everything at this is kind of more my jam. But there's good stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Too.
Yeah, 90s, dude. I'm looking forward to participating in the 90s. That one I'm gonna have a ball with. Unfortunately, like the other weeks that you guys have of all the other stuff, 90s is the only one I'm available for. So but that one I've seen at least good 12 movies, a good 12 90s horror movies. So that one I can actually literally talk about. This one I was like, I saw some clips. I'm like, I bullshit my way through it a little bit. I'm like, okay, there we go.
Yeah. I mean, this one I was pretty much doing the same thing, just bullshitting my way through it. It wasn't so much like with you. I've seen clips of most of these that have been mentioned or have watched them just recently. But it's just one of those ones. I knew this one I was going to participate just because, for me, if I'm not going to participate, I'd have to have not seen a lot. Because with the classic horror movies last week, I'd only ever seen one. And that one ended up on the list anyway. So, so I don't know if people. But anyway, with that being said, this is the final 12. At 12, got the Telltale Heart. At 11, we've got The Pit and the Pendulum. At 10, we've got Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. At 9, got Little Shop of Horrors. At 8, we've got Black Sabbath. At 7, we've got Dracula Prince of Darkness. At 6, we've got Eyes Without a Face. At 5, we've got The Haunting. At 4, we've got The Birds. At 3, we've got Rosemary's Baby. At 2, we've got Night of the Living Dead. And number 1, we've got Psycho. But with that, next week we are going to move over to 80s.
Oh boy.
And there will be some new people popping up on the panel for that. I think I've got the final panel in my head. Just got to So from 80s onwards, I've got a lot of people that want on. I'm
Sure.
only 4 people are going to make it on, so it's going to. So I've tried to balance it out, so it's not going to be. You're not going to get 5 episodes in a row with Austin's on. You're not going to get 5 episodes with Steve on.
That's cool.
Listen. I'm just this is all I'm just saying. If you just hear me out for a little bit, I know we're still live. We're live, Hal. Just literally 90's the only time I can do it. 60's I wasn't even so sure. So if there's anyone that I really want to get on, that I'm begging you to put me on the panel, please, for the love of God, put me on the 90's, baby.
Yeah, as I said, like I'm going to try and balance it out so it's people get at least 2 episodes or 1 on there. So if you're only available from 90's, then I consider yourself a lock for that. But if that being said, before I start rambling about scheduling and stuff,
sorry, I'm sorry I brought up a bad subject. It's just I can't help it sometimes.
It's not a bad subject, but Steve, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on my personal Facebook account, but if you can't find me on personal Facebook account, find me on Mesa Media. It's a production company that specializes in shooting and editing pro wrestling matches, shows, clips, all that sorts out. I am available for bookings, all across the nation, worldwide, soon to be coming Mesa Mania, Running Wild 2022. Austin, what you got?
Well, I'm all over the Movie Hero Network, my friend Jordan Anderson's network. Obviously, I co-host a lot of tier ranker fights. I co-host the tournament fights, co-host Live for Movie Hero, which is our SNL show, which we're going to do on Monday. We're going to do our tribute to Norm Macdonald, rest in peace. So we're going to be talking about Norm on our SNL show. And Tuesday, I alluded to it, we've got 70s horror on tier ranker fights. We've got Mark Edward Horick as a guest, Adam Collins, Andres Gallego are all going to be great panelists for that one. And on Friday, we're kicking off the Scary Movie Month with a tournament fights on horror sequels. So we're putting 64 horror sequels in the tournament, and we're going to throw them all in the randomizer and see which one ends up on top. It's going to be a lot of fun. Kicking off October 1st with a little horror Scary Movie Month. Let's do it.
Sweet.
Yeah. And talking about Jordan, I'm pretty sure he's on next week's episode.
for 80s? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, because you know why that's interesting? Because I told him every 80s movie horror movie for our show to watch. That was essential. So I gave him the horror 101 on that one. I gave him the checklist.
But with that being said, you can find me on Take Few Productions, where I host Rankum every Saturday. As next week's horror movies of the 80s. Late Night Take 3 is going to be on tomorrow. We're talking about Boy Meets World. Maybe you'll see Jordan on that as well.
It's his favorite show of all time, so he kind of needs to be on there. It's his favorite show.
But you can also find me over on Full Metal, where I host trivia matches. This classic is tomorrow, and I also host, and Full Metal Random is going to be Disney Animation, with Brian Nussbaum taking on Nico Suave, taking on Brandon Cohen, taking on RJ. It's going to be a lot of fun, and until next time, see you next week.